For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely. You're here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's Wednesday practice of Stanford week. And yesterday, Helton said that Tuesday's practice emphasized first and second down efficiency, and thus today, Wednesday, was third down efficiency on both sides of the ball. We saw a lot of passing today, but Dan, what did you think of today's practice?
Well, I thought they were probably not. I mean, and Clay told us this afterwards. They're going to try to keep their legs, not get them heavy-legged and not go too hard. Because I kind of asked him a question. I said, you got, 7 or 8 of those equipment warnings where guys don't have their knees covered. And I said, is it hard to go in shorts and not get their, get them into practice and they're not covering their knees? And then, get them really conscious of that. And he said, well, we don't want them to be heavy-legged. We had a good camp. We worked, whatever. So this wasn't going to be a physical practice. I mean, they had their shoulder pads on. They really probably didn't need them. I know that'll get people crazy. But the approach last year certainly worked against Stanford the first time they played them. That was their best game of the year. So, but they're trying to go in and be as fresh as they can. I think one of the advantages, they think they really know Stanford well. I mean, they played, Stanford doesn't change that much. And so it's a team USC really feels prepared for, feels good about going into the game. And that's how, they're not going to win it on the practice field. They're going to win it in Palo Alto Saturday is pretty much how they think.
Yeah. As you mentioned, last season, USC's first matchup against Stanford was their most complete game out of the whole season. And you actually asked Clay Helton, well, what was it about that game? How did you do that? And how did that not continue throughout the season? You didn't ask that specifically, but that's the general gist.
I mean, it's just they are comfortable playing Stanford. Stanford is who they are, as Cameron Smith was talking today. They are who they are, and they do what they do. And if you know what they're going to do and you get your job done, you got a real chance. Everybody is figured out that if you can really do the job on first down against Stanford, it gives them a little more pressure on second and third. If you let them get to third and short, you're up against it. That's what they live for. But if you make them go kind of third and long, they're going to struggle maybe if you get their quarterback a little bit, off his marks and a little nervous and what have you, or put him under a little more pressure to, get rid of the ball a little quicker and all that. And then, and Clay was all over the USC stat that they got 7 of their first 8 third and short, meaning 3rd and 1 to 5. He said they converted 7 out of 8. And they didn't turn the ball over and, didn't have a lot of penalties, didn't do all the things that, can really screw this USC team up. And if they do all those things, they're usually ready to play. I mean, it's a rivalry. They kind of don't like one another. And I think, they tend to, I don't know that you have to get them ready on the practice field for Stanford. I think that's something that builds up over a season. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The thing I like is USC can use, for example, the 3 big young guys in there if they want, side by side, and Marlon Tuipulotu and Jay Tavelli and Brandon Peely. And we got some, I guess, decently good news on Brandon is that he was in there, with a tape and then a retape. He's been casted apparently with that wrist. Now it wasn't said that there's a fracture or any specific injury, but that it obviously needs some protection. So he's going to have that wrist casted, but we'll see how that all plays out.
Mm-hmm. As far as other injury news goes, Caleb Trimley, yesterday we mentioned how he came off and spent most of the practice on the trainer's table. He actually was back out practicing today, a little gimpy, so it seems like it was a minor ankle sprain, something of that nature. But we did see the return of a full practice for Palai'e Naioteote, and man, it makes a difference when he's out there on the practice field.
And his first, again, they didn't tell him that what Clay laughed about it. Said, well, he didn't hear exactly what thud was. Well, I'm not even sure they were quite playing thud, but there was a real thud the first play he was in on, and Vavai was coming through the middle, and he didn't get to the line of scrimmage, and you heard a big thud. And then the next thing you notice, when they started with the second team against the first defense, he was out. Paleo, was out there with the first defense, and made another one of those line of scrimmage, going down the line of scrimmage and taking somebody down. And he didn't get the word that you really probably on a day like this you're not supposed to take anybody down. But man, if he's back and ready to, I don't think we even considered the possibility that this would be a game where he could go out and go all out. But that looks like it's a possibility, and wow, that was an eye opener. I think he's man, he's pretty good.
Greg Johnson returned after being out yesterday, but Isiah Polamau watched practice only, and it's because a stomach bug has been going through that DB group. Heldon says it's a 24-hour virus, so both of them should be good to go for Saturday. But addressing something that you mentioned earlier and has mentioned throughout this whole incident analysis, today's practice was not the most physical. Obviously, we've been clamoring for physicality for a while now. But what do you think about them? I mean, it's mostly scout team. The only time we saw 1-versus-1s was maybe in the 2-minute drill. But it's a far difference than what we saw in fall camp, where Heldon said he likes going 1-versus-1s. I don't really like scout team, and now we're seeing a lot of scout team.
A lot of scout team. I mean, they're doubling up, and they're getting a lot done. I mean, the Purdue kid, the quarterback, is a pretty good scout quarterback. I mean, he can throw the ball if you don't, if you have a bust in coverage or whatever. So I mean, they're getting challenged a little bit. I thought the scout team went after him pretty good. The scout team offense, and I did like the 2-minute drill when they. I mean, I'd kind of like to extend the 2-minute drill more at times with this team and no huddle and just go get them. But I thought you do like watching JT in the 2-minute drill. It's so hard to get a real good feel of where this is going. Maybe as the season goes on, I think they'll show up and really try to play hard and do all that. Will they be perfect? I mean, and the key was, no fumbles, no penalties. Convert all your opportunities on third down, and you're going to beat Stanford because they got better. They've got more good athletes than Stanford. Are they ready to do that? Are they ready to execute at that level where, the ball is where it's supposed to be at the time it's supposed to be? Are they able to, block Stanford's defensive line? They were last year. Stanford, that wasn't a great Stanford defense last year. I don't think we know yet this year exactly where that Stanford defense is, but I think it's a really hard call in terms of preparation. They've gone for the decision, keep them fresh, keep them, don't get them heavy-legged during the week and show up at Stanford, and then you go for it. And we'll see how that works. Again, worked last year. So, but it's a long season also. And as Clay said, and I had forgotten about this, he said they had to go 8-1 last year to win the South. You go 7-2 the year before, and they lost the South. So even though Stanford's a team from the North, you really don't want to lose a game to somebody like Stanford because it will impact how you do in the South. So we'll see.
It was a defensive day, so we got to talk to defensive coaches and players. And obviously they field a lot of questions about how do you stop a Bryce Love? How do you stop KJ Costello and JJ Arcega-Whiteside? You got to talk to DB's coach, Ronnie Bradford. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, I think they feel very confident in Iman. I think they just feel like he's really, it's a different looking Iman. It's a discipline. It's a run with him, locate the ball, make a play on the ball. I think, to be honest, though, they don't see that they want to be allowing them to get those one-man deep patterns and have KJ Costello have enough time to do that. Now, they're not going to tell you that they're really going to depend on the pass rush to get to him and not let him be comfortable enough to throw those jump balls. Especially, you don't want them in, inside the 10 where they automatically are going to go to that or to their 6-7 tight end. So So I think, it's more than, they've got a big group of defensive backs. I mean, they're not like running guys out there like San Diego State had some, 5'9", 5'10" kids that were really mismatches. And so I think they're going to, use their speed, try to use their discipline, try to help, but definitely try to get to the quarterback. As far as Bryce Love is concerned, I think, do your assignments. Stay where be where you're supposed to be. Do not get out of your lanes. Do not get somewhere where all of a sudden there's a gap and there he goes. So discipline, I think, is the big key on defense. Is stay in your gaps. And Kenichi said he did a pretty good job of that. At times, he said the opening game you're going to expect sometimes guys are going to get out of gap, contain and discipline. But he said overall, not bad, and was a good place to start from. And he said, I'm pretty optimistic about the guys up front doing their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Before we head up to Stanford soon?
No, I think this is one of those weeks where you just say, there's no reason to just predict this or talk this or do that. Just play the game. Yeah. I mean, and let the game determine for you. I mean, it's obviously, I don't think anybody expected USC to show up and play the way they did last year. They just flat out were ready to play, did everything you could ever, hope for them to do. And I think we'll see if that's doable again this year. I do think there is a sense of USC gets Stanford. And they look at Stanford like, if we play our game, we will beat you. If we don't, then Stanford has all those advantages that Stanford has. But I think USC, for a while, it was a bad matchup, USC against Stanford, when they had all those players and all that size, and USC was, down to, 40-some recruited scholarship players and all of that. But once USC got back to a full roster, the thought is, if you're disciplined, if you're smart, if you're, together and all that, they'll rise to the occasion against Stanford. We'll see if that's the case. We don't know.
Yep, we'll see indeed. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Wednesday's practice of Stanford Week. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely. Or for more, check out uscfootball.com.